Now, let's go back to the Boston bombing charges. As we've heard, the FBI case against the surviving suspect has revealed the movements of Tsarnaev brothers during and in the immediate aftermath of the explosions. And we've heard from their parents, who've told Channel 4 News tonight that their sons were not involved and were under FBI investigation for a prolonged period. We're joined now by Rudy Giuliani, who served as New York City mayor during the 9/11 terrorist attacks and knows better than most how difficult it is to keep people safe in a big city. And I suppose, Mayor Giuliani, as I guess we still call you, that the FBI, the very fact that the police admit that the FBI had visited these brothers beforehand, and the parents say it was 2 or 3 times, suggests that in some way they lost the plot somewhere.
Well, I guess that's something that has to be investigated and figured out why that happened. It is correct. The FBI visited them. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 times, certainly once. They have received information, I think it was from the Russian government, that at least the older brother appeared to have joined jihad and had become very hostile. But the FBI investigation at that time didn't reveal any specific situations. So I guess they discounted it, and it turns out, at least in retrospect, that was a mistake.
Obviously, the plus is that the FBS, the successors to the KGB and the FBI, clearly cooperated in this case, and that obviously must be reassuring when one's talking about a global terrorist threat of any nature. But what is the point of the much heralded Homeland Security that has been devised since the tragedy in New York? One wonders where that is in this case.
Well, you know, if you just look at this case, that's certainly a legitimate question. But you also have to look at the fact that there have been at least 40 attempts to pull off plots in the United States since September 11. Almost all of them, with one exception, was prevented. So the reality is law enforcement, security officials have to be right 100% of the times. These people can just be correct once, and then, of course, you have a terrible situation. So I don't think this discredits the whole situation. I think the record has actually been a very, very good one. But it does raise a legitimate question as to whether or not this man should have been targeted a little bit more with a little more detail.
If you and I were to go down to Washington today, we would find legislators bound up with all sorts of decisions about major procurement decisions for conventional and unconventional military machinery and weaponry and the rest of it. And yet, at the end of the day, surely the investment now needs to be going into cyberspace, into much more domestic surveillance and the rest of it than possibly into warfare between nations.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, intelligence is the key to stopping a terrorist plot. If you have the intelligence, if you have the information, as they had in 40 or 50 other situations, you're able to stop these plots. Look at what the Canadians just did yesterday, right? They stopped a plot based on very, very good intelligence. So the emphasis has to be on improving our ability to detect their activities, analyze their activities. Also, having not just the technology, but having information inside these organizations so you know what to look for.
Now, one of the things which seems to have attracted less attention than the bombs, and understanding that bombs were shocking enough, was the scale of the weaponry that these 2 boys had. Automatic weapons, amazing equipment of one sort or another. And this in the immediate aftermath of President Obama failing completely to get any of his moves against automatic weapons or indeed background checks. I mean, will that now be revisited, or do you think that that is dead, irrespective of what happened in Boston?
I don't know that this is going to move the gun control debate very much, because people on one side say, well, this might have helped to reduce some of the armament. People on the other side say that none of the things that are being discussed really affect the criminals, really affect the people who are terrorists and trying to get weapons, because there are so many available. And these people don't register. They don't buy through legal channels. So you end up with a kind of a stalemate with regard to that debate, at least.
Rudy Giuliani, thank you very much indeed for joining us live from New York.